So apparently Jimmy Kimmel thought he could keep pushing buttons forever with no consequences, and Disney finally decided otherwise. Not with a press release, not with a public fight, but in the most corporate way possible. Quietly, expensively, and very effectively. This story isn't just about one joke or one shirt. It's about control, money, and what happens when a network decides you're no longer worth the trouble. Okay, so this just got messy. And I mean corporate level messy. Jimmy Kimmel didn't just cross a line on air. He stepped into a situation that cost him millions without ever getting a public warning. Disney didn't suspend him, didn't scold him, and didn't even acknowledge it on camera. They simply erased him from a major project and started cleaning house behind the scenes. And once you realize what they took away, it becomes very clear this wasn't an accident or a misunderstanding. Here's the bombshell right up front. Jimmy Kimmel was quietly removed from Toy Story 5, a Pixar film already deep into production. Not rumored, not delayed, removed. The character he had already recorded voice work for, animated and fully planned, was cut completely. That alone is shocking, but when you hear the money attached to it, the situation suddenly feels very serious. Reports estimate Disney had already sunk about $1.2 million into animating his scenes. Kimmel himself was set to earn around $4.2 million for roughly 15 minutes of screen time. All of that vanished without a single public explanation. Now here's where it gets uncomfortable for Kimmel. This wasn't about a bad joke or even about politics in the abstract. This traces back to that t-shirt stunt on Jimmy Kimmel Live, where he mocked ICE and Donald Trump on national television. Normally, that would barely register in Hollywood, but the timing could not have been worse. The skit aired in the immediate aftermath of the ICE shooting in Minneapolis. While the country was still processing what happened, Kimmel's show leaned straight into provocation instead of restraint. And this wasn't a carefully approved segment. According to reports, Disney never signed off on it. Not ABC corporate, not Disney executives, not legal, not standards and practices. The skit allegedly went through at the last minute, off script, with the understanding that once it aired, it couldn't be stopped. That decision didn't just embarrass Disney, it exposed them to backlash they could not control at a time when the company is already bleeding from multiple directions. Because let's be real here, Disney is not in a strong position right now. Box office results have been shaky. Streaming is losing money. Ratings across network television keep sinking. The stock has been unpredictable throughout 2025 and into early 2026. The last thing they needed was their own late-night host dragging them into another political firestorm. And that's when things shifted quietly, fast, and without warning, which meant Kimmel kept doing his show. While Disney was already pulling the rug out from under him, now let's slow this down and walk through what actually happened, because the order of events matters. The t-shirt stunt didn't come from nowhere, but the way it happened absolutely did. According to insiders, Kimmel and his writers pushed the segment through late, bypassing the usual layers of review. Normally, Disney keeps a very tight grip on anything political that could spill beyond a single show. This time, they didn't get that chance. Once the segment aired, the damage was already done. Social media reacted immediately, but that part wasn't new. What changed was the internal response. Executives reportedly weren't upset that Kimmel expressed an opinion. Hollywood loves opinions. What they couldn't tolerate was being blindsided. Disney hates surprises, especially ones that pull them into controversy without approval. That's when conversations shifted from damage control to containment, and instead of suspending Kimmel again, which would have created headlines and sympathy, Disney chose a much quieter route. They targeted something that mattered far more than a few nights off. They pulled his Pixar cameo. No announcement, no explanation, just a closed-door decision that erased a multi-million-dollar paycheck. That move sent a message that everyone inside ABC understood immediately. This was not a warning shot, this was leverage. At the same time, Disney reportedly started looking inward. The anger wasn't limited to Kimmel himself. Producers, executives, and anyone who knew about the segment and allowed it to air came under scrutiny. Reports say Disney is now actively deciding who to fire or replace, specifically targeting those who shielded Kimmel or failed to escalate the issue. This wasn't about making an example publicly, it was about reasserting control internally. And here's the part that makes this feel calculated. Disney owns ABC, they own Jimmy Kimmel Live, they didn't need to make noise, they already had the power. By pulling the Pixar role, they avoided headlines while still delivering consequences that couldn't be ignored. Kimmel didn't get the chance to play victim on air. There was no dramatic monologue, just a missing paycheck and a missing credit in a major franchise. What makes this even more tense is that Disney is already in transition mode. Bob Iger is expected to step down later this year, with Josh D'Amaro frequently mentioned as a possible successor. Iger wants to leave behind stability, or at least the appearance of it, Letting a late-night host create unpredictable political chaos was the opposite of that. So when Disney moved, they moved quietly, efficiently, and without asking for permission, which left Kimmel still hosting his show while everything around him began to change. Now this is where the internet did what it always does and split straight down the middle. Kimmel's defenders immediately framed the situation as censorship, claiming Disney punished him for political speech. Others weren't buying that at all and focused on the timing and the lack of corporate approval. And honestly, that second group has a point. This wasn't about opinions. This was about putting the company at risk without consent. On social media, fans started connecting dots when the Toy Story 5 news leaked. People noticed Kimmel's name missing, then reports about the deleted character followed. That's when the conversation shifted from outrage to curiosity. Why remove him so quietly? Why not recast publicly? Why no explanation? And the silence from Disney only fueled speculation. Some celebrities reportedly rolled their eyes behind the scenes. Others stayed very quiet, which in Hollywood usually says more than public statements. There wasn't a big rally of support. No wave of A-list defenders jumping in to protect him. That absence mattered. It suggested that even people who agree with Kimmel politically were tired of the recklessness. And then there's Kimmel himself. According to reports, he is not taking this lightly. He is said to be disputing Disney's decision and has hinted at possible legal action over the lost income. That alone tells you how serious the financial hit was. This wasn't symbolic. This hurt. And here's where the timing gets interesting. Just days before these details started leaking, Kimmel casually announced plans to leave the United States in 2027. Now that comment didn't sit well with a lot of people. On its own, it could have been brushed off as talk. But placed next to everything else, it suddenly felt strategic. His current contract reportedly runs through 2026, with a potential extension into 2027. Leaving the country would make hosting a nightly network show impossible. No loopholes, no remote solution. Which raises a big question. Did Kimmel already know the extension wasn't happening? ABC has been dragging Jimmy Kimmel Live for years now, despite falling ratings and declining relevance. The show isn't the powerhouse it once was. Younger viewers stopped caring, older viewers drifted away, and without the Pixar paycheck or long-term security, Kimmel's position suddenly looks a lot less stable, especially as Disney quietly reshapes its future without saying his name out loud. To really understand why this hit so hard, you have to zoom out and look at how Jimmy Kimmel got here. This didn't happen overnight. Since around 2016, his show slowly shifted from comedy toward commentary. Jokes turned into speeches. Punchlines turned into applause breaks, and balance disappeared entirely. That approach worked for a while because politics were loud, emotional, and profitable, but over time, the formula stopped working. Night after night, it was the same tone, the same targets, the same reactions. Audiences didn't feel surprised anymore. They felt lectured, and it wasn't just conservatives tuning out, it was people who just wanted to laugh before going to bed. Ratings reflected that fatigue, and ABC quietly kept lowering expectations to justify keeping the show alive. Even respected voices in late night noticed the problem. Conan O'Brien, without naming names, made a pointed observation about comedy losing its edge when it becomes obsessed with one target. His point landed because everyone knew who he meant. Comedy requires timing and self-awareness. When applause replaces laughs, something fundamental breaks. Meanwhile, Disney's tolerance for risk has shrunk. The company is under pressure from investors, from audiences, and from its own history of overreach. Every controversy now comes with financial consequences. That's why this situation wasn't handled emotionally, it was handled surgically. Disney didn't argue with Kimmel, they didn't debate him, they just removed something valuable and reminded everyone who controls the platform. And let's talk about Toy Story 5 for a second. The fact that it exists at all already raised eyebrows. Many fans felt the franchise ended perfectly with Toy Story 3. Toy Story 4 barely registered culturally. So the idea that Disney would risk more backlash by keeping a controversial late-night host attached to it makes no sense. Cutting him quietly protected the movie, the brand, and the illusion of stability. This wasn't about punishing a belief. It was about protecting a business that no longer sees Kimmel as an asset worth defending, which sets the stage for the final question everyone is now asking. So, here's the bottom line. Because when you strip away the noise, the message is actually very clear. Jimmy Kimmel didn't get canceled, he got managed. Disney decided he was more trouble than he was worth and handled it the only way a massive corporation knows how, quietly, expensively, and without giving him a platform to fight back. Losing the Toy Story 5 role wasn't just about money, even though millions were on the line. It was about leverage. Disney reminded him that they own the show, the network, and the future, and once that reminder landed, everything else started to line up. The rumors about contract uncertainty, the talk about leaving the country, the silence from ABC, none of it feels random anymore. Now, is Jimmy Kimmel finished? Not immediately. He still has a show. He still has a microphone. But his position is weaker than it has ever been. ABC now has a clean exit path, if they want one. No dramatic firing, no backlash. Just a contract that doesn't get renewed. And in late-night television, that's often how the story ends. As for Disney, this wasn't about morality or politics. This was about control and money. Bob Iger wants to leave behind a Disney that looks calm and managed, even if it isn't. Cutting Kimmel out of a Pixar movie accomplished that without creating headlines. It was cold, calculated, and effective. And honestly, this raises a bigger question. Does late night even work in this hyper-political form anymore? Or has it turned into something audiences simply don't want to engage with after a long day? I want to know what you think. Did Disney do the right thing here, or are they just saving face? And is Jimmy Kimmel finally facing the consequences of choices he thought would never catch up with him?